The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. Welcome. It is Wednesday and we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours talking about autism from a 360-degree perspective. But on Wednesday, we do things a little bit different. We change it up a little bit because in the first hour, we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh joining us for a segment called Ask Dr. Doreen. And in the second hour, we have Nancy Jackson from Autism Care and Treatment today joining me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. So it's a very exciting day on Wednesday. As all days here on the show, we encourage you to participate, and you can do that in real time. Emily's going to cycle through some of the different ways you can get a hold of us. Now, this week still, there's only one way to watch us live. That's at www.autism-live.com. And when you go there, you have the opportunity to not only watch the show 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but 5 times a week we do it live. You also have the opportunity to put your cursor in the white box, type whatever you want, hit enter, and it shows up magically here on my screen so that you can actually ask our experts, such as Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, your questions in real time. I mentioned that that's the only way to do it this week because by next week we are hoping to roll out our new platform in which you'll be able to watch us on your tablets live, and that will be a very exciting thing. So we're really looking forward to that. And we want to thank you for subscribing to us on YouTube, which has made that possible. And if you haven't already done that, you're going to want to because we've got a lot of exciting things coming up. Having said all that, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen. We are here right now with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's such a thrill always to have you here on Wednesdays because you are a true expert in the field of autism. And I always like to say you're a visionary in the field of autism. You've been at the forefront of so much that has happened that has been good and fabulous in the field of autism.
Thank you. You're too kind to me, Shannon.
Not at all. Not at all. I could wax poetic for hours, but I'd rather have you answer parent questions. So thank you for being here. You guys have been writing in through the night. I love that when you guys do that so that we can start off, and we already have a bunch of questions. And I want to remind everybody right from the jump here that all of our experts that we have here, including Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, are not going to be giving child-specific advice. And there's a very good reason for that. It's a disservice to your kids, and there's no way, is there, Dr. Granpeesheh, that you could know enough to give child-specific advice in this forum?
No, there really isn't. First of all, our time is very limited here.
Yes.
So, and often, I think what parents are asking for is a little bit more general, and so we can answer in general terms. And then again, we're always happy to see kids who can come in here. I'm happy to see them, evaluate, and answer things in more detail. But for the purposes of the show, we're going to keep it very basic, general, so that also our answers are hopefully helpful to others as well.
Absolutely, and it is helpful, and you guys have written in and said that it's helpful, but I love that you mentioned that eventually if people want to bring their children in, they can.
Absolutely.
Which we're starting out with a question that has to do with that. The first question is, I'm a father of a 4.5-year-old autistic son, and I want to know if it's helpful for me to come to CARD from Pakistan, and how much it will cost for me. So there's a lot of things that are entailed in that, including plane tickets, and I know we would have no idea. But can you speak to the fact that somebody can bring their child in?
Yeah, and this would be, I mean, we have a lot of families that do come in just for an evaluation, and they come in from all over the world.
Yeah.
So if I'm not quite sure what this family wants, but so I'll talk a little bit about all the different things that we can do for families who are far from us.
Okay.
So yes, if you bring your child in, of course you'd want to schedule something with me first. And that would be several months ahead. My schedule's pretty packed, but like for instance, if you were to contact CARD today, which you'd be contacting the CARD headquarters and asking for an appointment with Dr. Granpeesheh, then you would be directed to Kathy Viscondi, and she would then probably give you work with your schedule since you're in Pakistan, and try to get you in around like between the end of this now and the end of the year, sometime this year. And then you come in, and depending on what your child, we would do a bunch of questions on the phone first, send you some information that you'd fill out, so we'd get a pretty detailed idea of what your needs are, what your child's needs are. So for instance, if your child hasn't been assessed ever or in the last year, we'd set it up so that when you're here, you'll not only get to meet with me, but you'll have a series of testing done at our assessment clinic, so that before you leave, I actually have the opportunity to review the testing with you and tell you sort of this is what this shows and this is what we need to do and so on. We'd also have you complete skills ahead of time so that we have that profile of your child. So we'd have a lot of the ability, I guess, to review your child with you while you're here, and it might be we might ask you to be here for 2 to 3 days, and that would be the evaluation, and then we would produce a report from it for you, and then okay, so then the treatment aspect. Even right now, I mean, if you come to CARD, I personally can assess you, but you don't need to come to CARD. We do have kids all over the world, and we have what we call, remote services supervisors who travel to help families such as this family. And the process for remote services is that a therapist will come to you, a supervisor will come to you, and then they'll evaluate your child and assess. It's a different type of evaluation. It's more of a functional behavior assessment and a little bit of like an indirect assessment, because they won't be able to do testing. And obviously we will definitely do the skills index or the assessment. So you'll get all of that in the evaluation, and then you will get a program. And the supervisor, let's say, would stay for 3 days, 4 days, and they will then either assist you in hiring people around you, so students or other, in the Asia, most of the people that we hire are, for instance, people who have immigrated in from the Philippines, or there are, nurses that are looking for work, or teachers that are looking for work. I would imagine that in Pakistan, we'd probably be looking for nurses, teachers, or college students, university students, and then you would hire them, or we can also hire them, but regardless, we train them, and we oversee the overall program, and we place everything in your home, and we sort of the program, the log books, everything. We set your home up just like we would if you were here. And then the supervisor connects with you on a weekly or bi-weekly basis through webcam, like Skype, and then also flies back to see you approximately anything between 1 to 3 months, every 1 to 3 months, depending on your child's needs. And we continue to train and oversee the group of people working with your child. So that's what we call remote services. In the past, we used to call it workshops. Now, that's one option of getting our help, and we do this everywhere. In fact, a few days ago, we're just about to start an affiliate. In fact, I'll talk about affiliates as well, because when we start doing this in a particular location, like when we started in South Africa or Thailand or so on, the number of families grows pretty fast, Shannon, and once it gets to a certain number, it becomes feasible one of the families usually says, "This is fabulous. I want to help spread this in my country."
Right.
And so we had this experience now in South Africa, in United Arab Emirates, in Thailand, in Ghana, in Zimbabwe. It's just, and the families will kind of take ownership of a school or a clinic, or they'll say, "I'm going to be the sort of," it's like a franchise model.
Right.
So they'll essentially do sign up with card, and then we will take responsibility for training their entire school or their entire clinic over the course of the next 3 to 4 years. And they call themselves, for instance, our South Africa affiliate, as you know, is called Stars Academy, a card affiliate.
Yeah.
And so they follow all of our training. In fact, we've now not only trained their therapists, but their therapists have now gotten to the point where we've trained supervisors for them. So they have a whole batch of their own supervisors and staff. And we help them with the management. We still have, I think, 3 supervisors flying out there pretty regularly and assisting with everything and overseeing everything for them. But, I mean, we're ready to fade whenever they want, but they sort of want us to hang around. Sure. And their quality is spectacular. It's fantastic. They have everything, our same evaluation process, everything we do at CARD. And they've now opened 3 more centers, and they're completely packed and doing very well and helping a lot of families in South Africa. So that's sort of what we do if it's a family who's interested in doing that in your own country. Otherwise, of course, you can move here, and then we would guide you on the phone and help you to decide where to move, and we're very happy to do that as well, and get you funding and all that sort of stuff. But that tends to be a little bit harder, especially because of visas and residence and all that sort of stuff. But there's many ways we can help you. And I mean, having said that, it's a long answer. Hopefully it'll help other people internationally as well. But another thing is that you can just do the evaluation or assessment with us, and then you can continue your program using Skills. Yeah. And that's what Skills was intended for, of course, and it's an online program that gives you the curriculum and program and tells you how to move forward.
And I have to say, you know, having said all that, one of the greatest things is that you've given people options. That there are so many different options, so you can find a thing that works for you and your family wherever it is that you want to be. And, you know, I love that people have access to you. They have a little bit longer wait to have access to you. But I also want to let everybody know that when I started at CARD and my son came in, I didn't have a meeting with Dr. Granpeesheh. But I had the benefit of one of the biggest compliments I have to you, beyond the fact that you're brilliant and you are a visionary in the field of autism, is that you are able to convey that mission and train people who follow in your footsteps, who provide the quality that you would provide. And that is amazing.
I hope so. God, I hope so, because
I am a living, breathing benefit of that. I experienced that.
Right. And who did your intake? Evelyn or Sienna?
Sienna.
No. Okay, I'm glad to see. But then that is like one of the, and Sienna, of course, right now is in charge of our quality assurance departments. Like she evaluates all the supervisors. Right. So people here at CARD who are good do continue to move up and do become. You know, they really do represent my dreams and hopes and missions. But it's hard because, you know, Shannon, we have a huge staff. You know, we're past 1,500 now, and I think by the end of the summer or by the end of this year, we'll be around 200 board certified staff. You know, so it's kind of crazy amount of supervisors, and I just hope that they are. Really, it's hard to get them to like think the way I think.
But you do I see that you worry about that, and you do a very good job of that. Yeah, and I would say to people, if you do the remote services, you know, those are rock star people. Those are people who fly around the world, and they are rock stars. That you know,
John Yali,
and
who's
Peter
in charge
Farrig. I mean, and Sue Cho. These are rock star therapists who go and supervise these things. Right. They are the creme de la creme.
They're awesome, and their view. All of the ones you just mentioned have been here. Good Lord, many years. Many years, and there's many others like that as well. But I was shocked because a few days ago, you know, John Yali runs our remote services. He's the director, and a few days ago he asked me. He said, "I need someone else for South Africa because one of our other supervisors, Sarah Niehoff, who flies from Thailand to South Africa is getting super busy in Thailand, right? Because we're about to open an affiliate in Bangkok. And I said, sure, that's fine. And I put out a notice to internal supervisors, and I couldn't believe the response. Like, we got so many people that were just like, oh yeah, I'm happy to do it. I'm happy to do it. And it made me realize that we really have a very large number of board-certified supervisors. It's crazy.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
so just know that, when you're looking at all these different models, don't think of it as something that gets further and further removed, because I see your hand and your vision in all of those places.
I hope so. And it's hard to replicate when you go it gets to this size.
Yeah.
But something else that I hope will help is, this year Jonathan Tarbox, as you know, Jonathan and I are writing the card book.
Yes. And
so God willing, we have to work under contract with Elsevier, so we have to finish it this year. Yeah. And when it's done, it should be out next year. And I'm really looking forward to that as well, because that will, God willing, really represent what it is that I want to say to the world.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Well, hopefully that'll work.
And it will live on in many different formats. That's you're leaving a legacy, and that's an incredible thing. And as a parent, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We should take a quick break and come back with more of your questions. And always remember, if you need a follow-up, make sure that you do. Dr. Granpeesheh appreciates it when you send a follow-up if you have further questions, and we will continue to ask those. So stick with us. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi guys, for the month of August, I figured we'd do some fun in the sun activity. We're going to make our very own frozen bowling game. It's super fast and super easy. I was inspired by some lessons I saw in skills. Alright, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are water, water bottles, balloon, and food coloring, which is always optional. First step you're going to do is make your bowling ball, since it'll have to freeze overnight. The first thing I'm going to do is take my balloon and put a few drops of food coloring in it. This is optional. If you don't have food coloring or your child has an allergy to it, don't use it, but I thought it'd be fun to make everything super colorful. So, I have my food coloring. I'm going to put a few drops in here. And then, take this to the sink and fill it up with water and tie it a knot. Here's my balloon filled with water and the food coloring. I'm going to take this and place it in the freezer with some towels, just so it holds its shape better. Our next step is to make the bowling pins. I have 10 recycled water bottles that I've refilled with water. Now I'm going to put some food coloring in them.
Straight to the center at full speed. Light will surround you in a blink of an eye.
Now that my bowling ball is frozen and my pins have been filled with water, let's go outside and play with these.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
I hope you and your family have fun with the frozen bowling game like I did with my friend Emily. Well, until next time, craft on, guys. Bye.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. I just want to we had somebody who said, wow, thanks Dr. Doreen and Shannon for sharing the information about remote services. I am a skills mom from India, and it is great to hear about the many possibilities. I always wondered if remote services were as effective as the regular supervision, and your answer cleared that up. Thank you so much.
That's great.
Thank you for writing in, and we love that you're using skills.
And for the mom from India, we have a number of families in India. I'm not sure if you're all in the same location, but we should try to connect all the families out there, because we could do an affiliate there.
There you go.
And so it would be important to gather people. So I think if you want, just send in your information to Shannon, and then I'll get that and relay it to John Galley, who will have emails of other families.
Fabulous. Okay, moving on. We've got a couple of different questions that relate to being appropriate. One here who says, how do I keep my 3.5-year-old from stripping down to his nakedness? We are potty training whining too, and he insists on stripping to go to the bathroom too. Teacher said he attempted to strip 4 times at school yesterday. Yow.
So, it's a chaining procedure. So it's not a big deal. I mean, we can do it as behaviorists, but I would say, I guess you should start by putting clothes on him that are very difficult for him to take off, like for instance overalls or things that actually he can't remove that easily, and then you need to block it. So someone has to be there to prevent him from even starting, and just do what's called you'll be reinforcing on a schedule of just keeping it on.
Okay.
So it's not really non-contingent reinforcement because it's contingent on keeping it on. So it's just sort of timed. It'll be a variable interval schedule. And so every 2 minutes you give him a reward and just say, good job keeping your clothes on. Then 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and so on. And then gradually you'll change from, let's say, overalls to something else, and you'll just make sure that it generalizes. So that's not a difficult thing. I'm guessing that he started doing that when you started potty training, perhaps. Now, what will happen, of course, is that when he goes to the bathroom, someone has to be with him as well, and not allow him to undress, but actually just pull down, and then stop and do his thing, and then get his reward.
And we would reinforce for keeping what needs to stay on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's like any other thing. You reinforce the desired behavior, and you disallow, or in this case you would block the undesired behavior.
Okay.
And that's a pretty straightforward thing.
Okay. And then in a semi-related question, a slightly older child, Dr. Doreen, my son 8 touches his private parts a lot. I have asked him why, and he says, quote unquote, that parts get stuck to other parts, which is pretty eloquent, right?
That's awesome.
How do I get him not to touch himself so much in public? Thank you for all you do.
Right. My pleasure. So that's actually a pretty interesting answer, and we always want to, I think you never want to ignore what your kids say, and so he might be actually either sweaty, in which case things are sticking to each other and making him uncomfortable.
Okay.
And you might want to check that, and if that's the case, you just put some baby powder or show him how to put baby powder on, so that it's not sticky and uncomfortable, quite honestly. And you want to make sure also that his underwear is comfortable and all that sort of stuff. And also, sometimes there are rashes and we don't investigate, and you want to make sure that none of that is happening. Of course, that is happening. You want to go see the pediatrician and get that taken care of. But otherwise, to answer your question, touching your private parts or masturbation is a very typical developmental thing, especially with a physical thing that happens with children, typical children, boys, especially with boys. And so what we tend to do is we allow it in private. We teach our child that you can do this at night when no one's in your room, but otherwise you're not touching yourself. And then that actually then at least allows the child to have a fair goal. Shannon, I'm very all about not only teaching our kids exactly what's normal, like any other child would do, but also making it fair. All right, so I don't want to take away something, and the truth is masturbation is a huge reinforcer.
Sure.
So I can't take away a huge reinforcer unless I'm allowing it at certain points.
Right.
So what you do is you just put it on a schedule, essentially, and you can, when the child does it, you will stop the child and say no, and then you will actually allow it at night. And you want your child to be able to differentiate that if they stop now, they can do this at night.
Right.
And then that will make it much easier for the child. Now, I'm just describing this in very regular lay terminology, but there's very specific procedures, like you would really block the behavior by preventing it. You would want to make sure that your child has some understanding of the evening, whether it's like you remind the child this is okay now to do it just before you leave his room, or you have a picture that depicts the evening bedtime or whatever it is. But you do want to make sure that your child has private time that he can do whatever. as long as, otherwise he's healthy.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference. It's a matter of, and if you want to make it really simple, again, I don't know the functioning level of the child, but if you want to make it simple, the difference between private and public is you're alone in your room versus are there people around? If there are people around, if you're not in your room, or even if you are in your room and there's people around, you're not private.
Yeah.
Private is when you're alone.
Interesting. Very interesting. We have these kinds of discussions at home all the time because, I've got a boy and he's of a certain age and he's moved into this phase in the last year where he tells me all the time that I'm doing things that embarrass him. I breathe and he says, Mom, it's embarrassing to me. Right. And so recently I had a discussion with him about, there are things that you do behind your door and that you don't do in front of me because it embarrasses me.
Right.
And I saw the light bulb go off then because he's all the time telling me he's embarrassed and I don't think it had occurred to him. I don't know that I had talked to him about the fact that I, too, can get embarrassed.
Right.
And I saw him go, oh, okay, interesting. That hadn't even occurred to me.
It's interesting, actually, because embarrassment is one of those things that is a real strong sign of recovering. Really? Because normally you don't have embarrassment unless you're really good at seeing other people's perspectives. Mm-hmm. Because embarrassment is all about what are they going to think of me?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
I hadn't thought about that. A reason to celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
There's always these silver linings and things that happen.
I always look for it. I look for things like, oh, he's getting embarrassed.
Oh,
that's pretty cool.
Almost everything I do embarrasses him.
That's so typical.
If I go to school and it's been a windy day and my hair is a little bit longer, and he'll say, Mom, you can't go to school like that. My friends say you have crazy hair and it looks bad. And I asked one of the friends, they never said that. That was just him saying it's what, because
it's what they're going to present. Yes, it's so amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good thing.
My son also, he's very selective about who gets to take him or drop him off or pick him up
Very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so it's a good thing. Okay, let's take another short break, and then we're going to be back with more of your questions with Dr. Doreen. Stick with us.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Hi there, I'm Lisa Ackerman. Welcome to the show. So the goal of today, we're going to make meatballs. Let's get started. So again, I'm going to take roughly a pound of my ground organic turkey, and I'm going to add in the secret vegetable. So if your kid doesn't like vegetables, don't cook in front of them, okay? Have them watch a movie or something. But you definitely want to make sure they're not watching, because then they won't eat it. So, and here we go with the egg. And our breadcrumbs. I'm just adding salt and pepper to taste. If you think about kids' shapes and sizes, you want to think small shapes, small hands. So your oven should be preheating at about 400 degrees. We're going to kick into the oven here and look at our meatballs. I did flip them halfway through the 20-odd minute. So we'll put, just like Julia Child's, there's our finished product right there. These are good. Cooking is easy. You don't have to be afraid of it. But we want to hear from you. If you can let us know what recipes are important to you, maybe convert a recipe from a traditional flour or gluten-based to a gluten-free or an allergy-free, we're here to help. So you get to us. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com. You can reach out on Facebook at facebook.com/autismlive or reach out at Talk Now. So I know you're having a great day. I had a lot of fun cooking with you in the kitchen, but I'll tell you before we end, I got to have more meatballs. Have a great day.
You say hi, we say hi. Let's get wild, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. I'm looking at questions that you guys sent in on Facebook this morning. Somebody wants to know, how do you get a child with autism to try any kind of new food? I've tried everything. I'm exhausted and feel defeated. I'm so worried that he will never, ever try something and will survive only on pancakes, waffles, baked chicken meat, and chicken nuggets. I'm sending you an air hug because we've all been there, haven't we?
Yes, of course, but it's actually not that hard. It's a pretty easy procedure, and it's 100% successul.
All right.
So let's start with that. Feeding is something we don't fail at.
Okay.
It's through ABA. You will use his current foods as reinforcers, and his the food you want to introduce as something you assume it's something he just doesn't like. So you start with a tiny morsel of the food that you want to teach him to eat, and then a large amount of something he likes. Let's say you want to get him to eat broccoli. So you start with literally a tiny morsel of broccoli, like a half a teaspoon.
Okay.
And he would then take that, and then he can have his plate of pancakes. Otherwise, he can't have pancakes.
Okay.
That's very simple. Then once he's really easy with that and fluent, and that's happening, could take a day, 2 days, could be a week, whatever, then you will increase the amount to a spoon. And before you know it, you can gradually increase it to, let's say, a whole piece of broccoli, and then 2, and then I would just take it easy and leave that, and then you'll see that will add into his generalized foods. It won't be his favorite, but it'll be there. He'll take it when it's on his plate. Now, and then you go with other foods.
Okay.
And we have kids that come in, Shannon, who won't even put anything in their mouth. They're on a G-tube,
Right.
And so they are not chewing, they're not swallowing, and they won't take anything at all unless it's liquid. Mm-hmm. Even, in some cases, not even, water. So we will start with the smallest amount, but then also with like very, very little texture, consistency, and so on. So we'll often start with just a speck, like those decorating things on a cake, and we'll gradually increase size. Some of our kids have chewing problems. Yours doesn't sound like, because you're having pancakes and you're having chicken, and so the child's chewing and swallowing, so you're in pretty good shape. And it's just a preference. That's all it is in your case. So this is going to be pretty easy. I would start by talking to a nutritionist and getting a bunch of, since it's going to be a little bit of a battle, or it's going to take a while to integrate other foods, I would pick the ones that are the most nutritionally important.
Okay.
So, right now you have your proteins, and so what you're probably going for is fruits and vegetables, I'm guessing, because you didn't name any fruits or vegetables. Pick the ones that kids usually like.
Yeah.
Like vegetables, we're talking peas and carrots.
Right.
Typically corn. Now, although a lot of our kids have allergies to corn.
Yeah.
And then in terms of fruits, there's such a huge variety. See what your child likes and see what they need. Some of our kids need potassium, in which case you want to teach your child to eat bananas. Some of them need vitamin. So it's really about what your child's nutritional needs are. Fruits are usually not that hard to teach. Vegetables a little bit harder, but not really.
Okay. And so you mentioned the word battle, because I want to go back to when you were saying about, you're going to put that tiny, tiny, tiny amount on the plate, and that they have to eat that before they can have the preferred food. Mm-hmm. But what I picture is the child refusing and getting down off the chair, and then the parent having to put them back on the chair and having it. And a lot of times parents would get into this discussion about, you have to do this and whatever. And I know I've heard you before say, don't let it turn into that kind of a battle.
No.
So can you tell us a little bit about how we lay that out?
Right. Did this parent say the age?
No.
Okay. So I'm wondering if these videos are accessible to parents. I have several talks on feeding, and I have a number of really amazing videos, which we should probably try to get to some families. They're part of these presentations. But, if it's a younger child, you want to basically use a chair, high chair. Yeah, you want to use a high chair because it locks the child in.
Right, so the escape thing is off the table.
So they're not able to escape. And if it's an older child where they don't fit into a high chair, I really still would make sure the child is sitting at what I do is I'll put the chair in a corner, and then I'll put the table in front of the child, and I'm sitting on this side. So essentially the ends of the table block the child in.
Okay.
So the wall is preventing the child from running away. You really don't want to engage in any kind. You need to be dominant. If you're teaching, you need to be dominant.
Dominant but calm.
Dominant, but hugely reinforcing and calm. Never, one of the first things any therapist learns is the instruction that you give has to be neutral affect, completely neutral affect, because if it's not, your reinforcer is not going to have any power, and your aversive, or when you don't give, or when you're angry with the child won't differentiate. If you're constantly yelling at a child, it's the same with any other kind of training. If you're constantly yelling at someone, they won't know the difference between that. They'll habituate to your yelling. They'll just habituate. It won't mean anything anymore. It'll be your voice level.
Right.
So you don't yell. You simply just say, and you keep your instruction very low as well. Essentially, it depends on the level of the child's functioning, but the standard instruction is just take a bite.
Yeah.
Take a bite, and then good job, and here's your pancake.
Right.
And then gradually over time, it's take a bite, and you have a spoon of the thing. So in the spoon, there's either a tiny amount, or there's a lot in the spoon, or there's you have to do 3 spoons of that. And then your reinforcer, which is the pancake, might start out with like a large amount, but then as time goes on, the new object increases and the reinforcer decreases. That's always the balance. So then you're just eating like you're eating broccoli, let's say, with the chicken nuggets.
Yeah.
And so that's essentially the process. It's not if it shouldn't turn into a fight, and the way you prevent that is by doing one trial and you walk away.
Right.
If it turns into a fight, that means you're demanding too much, and the reason I always tell parents not to turn it into a fight is because most of the time you lose.
Right.
So you don't want to lose. So you just go as far as you're successful.
Yeah.
My son, and this is another key thing also, which has to do with the stuff that your child is eating. Because sometimes chicken nuggets or whatever, the breading might be something he's allergic to. Sometimes our kids eat things they're allergic to, and then they actually won't eat anything else because that shuts down their entire digestive system. My son, when he was really little, used to drink a lot, had just gotten into the habit of drinking chocolate milk, which my mother used to give him. And when he had chocolate milk, I could tell, because he'd have these really dark rings, and he wouldn't eat anything else at all day. He could starve. He didn't care. He just didn't care. So it had gotten to the point where it wasn't even enough. I mean, I had started by just saying, if you're not going to eat, you need to go to your room. So, but that was not even aversive enough for him. So it had gotten to the point where I would give him nothing unless he had 1 spoon of rice or 1 piece of chicken or whatever, and then gradually increase that.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It is tough.
I think, though, it's a real pivotal moment for parents when a therapist comes in, and I so appreciate that you say, I'm exhausted and I feel defeated, this parent. I know. And then a therapist will come in, and they'll put the piece of broccoli down, and they'll very calmly say, okay, eat that little tiny bit of broccoli, and then you get the pancake. And as the parent, you stand there and go, as if that would work.
Yeah.
As if that would work. And then your child does it, and you go, what magic fairy dust did you sprinkle? But I think part of it is just being calm, clear, and definitive, and not bringing other baggage and the fear that sometimes we bring as parents, that we're there, like, I need you to eat this, and we'll overtalk it.
Yeah, and the child usually at this point has figured out that if I don't do it with you, Mom, you'll forgive me and let me get away with it.
Right.
But this is someone new, and I want to impress this person.
Right.
And so I'll do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there's all this other stuff going on.
Yes.
It's a lot easier, and I have to say, when we do feeding here at the centers, it's pretty fast. I mean, we get kids from 0 to full normal diets very quickly, within a few months. So it's not something to fear at all.
And if somebody wants some help with that, they can call the CARD 800 number and
call the CARD 800 number, and then we will assign someone to do it. We used to have a service called SOS, Specialized Outpatient, and feeding was part of it. And all of our staff are so trained on doing feeding that we just do it. But it really still should be a separate service. So, make sure if anybody at CARD says, oh, we discontinued doing feeding. We didn't really. We actually have feeding experts here. It's just that all of our supervisors can do this now. So, insist and say, I said we can do it for you.
Okay.
And we can. We'll set up a separate protocol. So, in other words, what I'm saying is, we don't have to be doing intensive work or other ABA. We could just focus on feeding.
But you heard it. You can say, Dr. Doreen said.
And in fact, I'll make sure that admissions knows this as well, in case you call.
Another question here on the live feature. Hello, Dr. Doreen. I have a question for you. When do you know when a child is ready for inclusion, or what are the signs parents have to look for to recognize and push the school to start doing inclusion? I know this is complex, but if you could give us some ideas of pointers for a kindergarten, first grade transition child.
Yeah, that's a terrific question. You know, I have so many talks. I need to turn all these talks into some sort of video and just put them out there. Inclusion is a very important subject. So, you know, your child's in kindergarten already, and now you're looking at first grade. When we do inclusion, well, you asked about signs. Signs, the only thing I really require is, for my child to go in, is the ability to pay attention most of the time to someone at a distance. Because the way we do inclusion is we start with, you know, we do all our one-to-one at home to begin with when our kids are 2 or 3 or something. And then by the time they're 4 or 5 and they're going into school, we're already at a point where, like, the child's pretty much doing everything for us and really competent. And one of the main requirements for school for me is some level of communication. So if my child's not really vocalizing or behaving very normally amongst other peers in terms of communication, it could even be nonverbal communication, but there has to be a level of functioning where I don't want my child to go in there and feel left out or feel isolated. So I want my child to be able to just mix in and follow very basic instructions from a teacher. Now, the teacher is not the same as a therapist, because our therapists are kind of one-to-one in your face, and the teacher is at the end of the classroom. So we actually teach our kids that. We do that whole process. I mean, we call it mock preschool. So a therapist will actually have the child sit on the floor with, like, stuffed animals or other dolls or whatever, and will sit at a table or a chair and pretend to be the teacher, so that our child will learn to respond to someone who's further away or writing on a board. We teach our kids certain preparedness skills, like, look, if you get lost, look at what's on the board. This is how you ask a question in school. Look at the kid next to you and see what they're doing. We give them a lot of steps so our kids don't get lost. And those are really the main things. But I mean, when we do it, we integrate with a shadow usually. So we'll have one of the therapists go to school with the child for certain periods of time, especially free play time. And then gradually the shadow will change, and we'll have, you know, a shadow the child doesn't know. And then gradually we fade out. So those are the main things. You would have a lot of thought on this because you went through it.
Yeah, you know, I move slower than anybody else, though. I think I'm overly cautious. I had just shared with Dr. Granpeesheh that today is Jem's first day of 5th grade, and that I'm, you know,
worried.
Well, no, I don't know that worried is the right word. Although that's sort of my part-time job, that I worry about everything always. You know, but you know, I'm having a lot of emotion about letting that leash be a little bit longer, and had lots of conversations with him about trusting, and but. You know, I do think that giving them the space to see what they can do and giving them opportunities to fly. Along the way, you know, there might be a day where we had, because we went from having a card therapist being there to our card therapist training a therapist who was going to be there to an unknown shadow. But along the way, there were days that the stuff just happened. Like a day where the therapist couldn't come because they had a doctor's appointment or something, and the person who was supposed to show up didn't show up. And maybe it was a short period of time, like an hour, that he had to be without a therapist, but he would demonstrate that he could. And some of those were planned, and some of them were just accidents, happy accidents that might have been planned to kind of force me as the reluctant mom to see that he could do so much more than he could. But I was so grateful that we moved slow, because he demonstrated that he could do the schoolwork, and that it wasn't just that we were throwing him in the deep end of the pool and hoping he would swim. Do you know what I mean?
Sure. And you will always go at different speed. I mean, kids are very different. Some of our little girls can't wait to get into school, you know, so they fly. But it's not just about having the ability to fly. It's also about having the ability to make mistakes. And so, like, to fail. Because one of the things we want our kids to do is learn by failure. You know, and as also, you know, I've changed now, but I was also a very protective mom of my kids. And It's hard. I mean, you want your kids to always be successful and always be happy, but you really also have to just let them learn from their own experiences and from their own mistakes.
Yes,
as long as you're there to model the way to get out of the thing.
Yeah, and I think keeping tabs on what's happening and being not tied to a result, of an expectation of a result, but looking to see what's happening and adjusting.
Yes, that's the most important thing, is just being involved in what's going on.
I heard somebody recently talking about the fact that when a plane takes off from Los Angeles to go to New York, they have a map of where they're going to go, but then every 15 minutes they have to readjust course corrections, and that life is like that. And that really, you know, as a parent, I have to be, sometimes I want to be able to get it all taken care of so that I could maybe put it on autopilot, and I'm discovering there is no autopilot.
Right.
That I have to keep making course corrections.
Right. But I mean, and these are all just finding solutions to problems, right? Or issues that come up.
Yeah.
And at some point, we need to allow our kids to find those solutions themselves. So like, for instance, in your case, you know, being concerned that he might get distracted walking from one end of campus to the other end.
Yes, this is what I was saying to her earlier, you know, that
But what will happen if that happens?
You know, eventually he'll wander back to the classroom, because my son, when he goes to the restroom, gets a little disorganized sensory-wise.
Right.
And so if he does that, he'll wander back to the classroom, and the teacher will report to me that he was gone too long, and then I will offer him a reward for going and getting back within a certain amount of time.
Okay, and or the teacher might even tell him, you're late, Jem, what happened, you know, and if I know him, I think there's a level of importance to him to fit in.
Yes.
So he might even self-correct.
Yeah, he
might even correct that without requiring an additional reinforcer. He might just, the aversive of being left out, or the aversive of embarrassment, might cause him to correct. So there, either way, it's just a longer path, but it'll fix itself.
See, this is why I need to be surrounded by experts, because I couldn't find my way otherwise. Okay, so I think those are really good things that you gave, though, for ideas of when to be looking for inclusion. We had a question that came in that somebody said, if you have time after answering parents' important questions, and I appreciate that you were asking for that first, can you answer my question? How is the BACB program, and they wrote on BIT, but I think you mean IBT. How does it work?
Well, IBT right now has a whole bunch of courses that are just based on our own training, cards training. I mean, they're not to get a BCBA, or Board Certified Behavior Analyst, to get that credential. You need to, the BACB is the board. It's the Behavior Analysis Certification Board, BACB, and they have a series of courses that you need to take at university level. And these are, if you're getting the BCABA credential, it's bachelor's level courses. If you're getting the BCBA, it's master's level courses. And these are like, I think 4 courses now. I'm not sure. Maybe they've added, maybe it's 5. But there's a series of actual courses, university courses. At CARD, we have contracts with University of Nevada, Reno, and University of Florida, Tech,
Institute of Technology, or something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm horrible with university names. Florida Institute of Technology, FIT, and their wonderful program there. And Dr. Martinez, if you're listening, I did not forget the name of the university right now.
It's still early in the morning.
FIT, and a lot of our kids, a lot of our therapists or therapists in training, supervisors in training, go there. CARD pays for that. If you're an employee at CARD, we pay for that, and essentially we support you through school. And when you finish those courses, then you need, or during the courses as well, you need a huge number of mentorship and supervision hours. I don't even know. I think it's 1,500 hours.
That was the number that popped in my head.
Right. It's kind of like a partial pre-doctoral internship that you do when you get licensed as well. So I think you need about 1,500 hours or something, and 750 hours of supervision. I'm not sure. There's a bunch of these requirements. IBT provides all that. Okay. Now, there was a recent regulation that said that for someone to supervise other BCBAs, you need a whole new credential. Our staff have that, so the IBT staff have that. That's why now they're doing a lot of trainings across the country.
Yes.
And if you attend their training, you are receiving some of those hours that you need towards your supervision or mentorship. And I think that's the best I can do. I would really suggest that you contact IBT. They'll tell you all about this.
We've been trying to book. We're going to have Catherine Peterson come on at some point to talk about all these things. She's a very busy lady, though, so we're trying to make it work with her schedule to have her come on and talk about all these things.
Or Cecilia next time. I mean, who's the director?
Yes.
Cecilia.
And she's busy times 12. But we'll try to get one of them somehow in on the show to talk about.
Next time they do a training for supervisors here, I would see who has an hour.
Okay. We will make that happen. We should take a break, but if you don't mind, I'm going to plow on ahead and ask questions. Okay. Somebody wants to know, have you ever seen kids recover with just ABA and no biomedical treatment whatsoever?
Yeah, I'd say that's probably about 2/3 of our kids who recover have no biomedical treatment at all. Okay. In fact, you know, if you go back in time, my kids who are now in their 20s and 30s didn't have any biomedical interventions because they didn't exist back then.
Good to know.
So when I started treating kids in like 78, 79 at UCLA, and then of course through CARD at 1990, there was no biomedical at all. In fact, the period between 90 and 95, I started gathering data because I was such a strong believer that there is something going wrong with our kids biochemically. And I started to, and it's funny, Shannon, because sometimes you're very kind and you always say you see that to me that I think of things in the future.
You do.
So back in 1990, and you have to realize the DAN organization came into place in 95, right? 5 years later. But in 1990, when I first opened CARD and I was writing out the questionnaires for parents to fill out, sort of the forms, it's the same form that we still have, and it has questions like, has your child had vaccinations? Were there any reactions? Has your child had ear infections? And how many times has your child been given antibiotics? And all that sort of stuff. And I wasn't educated enough back then to know how, taking too many antibiotics will kill flora, will produce sort of fungal infections and wreak havoc in your gut. But of course I learned that very, very early on through my dear friend Bernie Rimland. It's interesting that I was seeing that with my kids, and so I'm not sure how I got into this. Why was I saying all this?
Because the question was about, have you ever seen kids recover from just ABA?
Exactly. So my kids where I treated them, like Nick, he was in the very early 90s and we weren't doing any kind of intervention then. Or you look at some of my other kids that are coming right now, any kind of biomedical intervention. I mean, I think I connected with the DAN group. Of course, I know Bernie for a very long time, and he put together the 95 DAN group, which didn't work out very well. And then 96 or 7, John Pangborn and Sid Baker and Bernie together really officially formed the DAN group, and they invited more doctors, and I think it really started to take off closer to like 97, 8 or so, and I was involved with them really involved and speaking at their conferences and so on from 2000 on, and I miss Bernie so much, and unfortunately that organization is no longer in place, but it is now, his organization, the Autism Research Institute, has more or less taken its place, but physician training isn't part of what they do anymore, but now there's the MAPS training, which is also very good. But anyway, a lot of kids never received biomedical interventions. Now, having said that, the world has changed. The toxicity levels have gone significantly up. So back in the 90s, we didn't have plastic. Okay, so we did not have, back in the 90s, Shannon, if you remember,
of course,
we were not walking around with plastic bottles. Everything was glass. And
you drank water out of the faucet.
You drank water out of the faucet. You did not have all these issues with toxicity, right? and our animals were way healthier, and it was just the beginning. I think it was mid-90s, I'm not sure of the exact date, but it was just the beginning of genetically modified foods. So now, 25, 30 years later, our water's bad, we drink everything, we eat everything out of plastic, we microwave plastic, we leave it in heat, whatever. All our food is, like 80% of our food is genetically modified. This is why now you see on regular TV ads for probiotics. Yes. I mean, good Lord. It cracks me up when I see these ads for probiotics. It's like we destroy ourselves. You know, let's take out all the healthy bacteria. Let's make sure no one gets healthy bacteria. So we're all pretty messed up. And now let's, produce pharmaceuticals for this.
A whole new industry. And,
it's pretty fascinating.
Acidophilus and and all those.
So therefore, I'm not sure that I would recommend that you don't. What I do is I always tell my parents to just make sure your child is healthy.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
If your child is sleeping well and has a normal blood test and isn't showing signs like rashes or fungal infections or that sort of stuff, you're fine. Go on with the teaching, which is the ABA.
Okay. I have a question about schizophrenia. Can you have schizophrenia and autism? What is the difference?
No, I mean, officially by the book, you're not allowed to have both at the same time. You can't. It's it's like having a virus and a bacteria. The difference, the key difference, and this is a good one, is pretty much in schizophrenia you have hallucinations and delusions, and in autism you don't. Hallucinations are what you hear, delusions are what you see, and they are imaginary. So if you imagine people telling you things, or if you imagine seeing things that are not real, that's more in the realm of schizophrenia. With autism, or now ASD, autism spectrum disorders, it's not really those types of things. It's more basic. The processing of the brain is more or less delayed and not necessarily aberrant. So it doesn't go into a whole realm of abnormality. It just goes into delay. And so your child's not learning language the way they should. They're not learning social skills. They're not giving eye contact. They're delayed on certain skills. And once you're delayed on certain skills, your overall behavior looks strange or aberrant. But it's not really as abnormal as having hallucinations or delusions.
Okay, so if a child has been diagnosed with autism, later on, if they start having delusions, then their diagnosis of autism would go away and then they would have schizophrenia?
Correct.
And was it that they always had schizophrenia, or?
Possibly.
Okay.
Now, you have to understand that we don't know enough about, both of these diagnoses are not good.
Right.
So ASD, of course, is a brand new diagnosis that just came out. And before that, the autism diagnosis has been in place for many years. Okay, so almost 20 years. So that's, pretty solid there. But we always had problems with it. Like, it's a diagnosis that's based on symptoms is not necessarily the best diagnosis rather than based on etiology, causation. Schizophrenia, back in, I want to try to remember when this was, I think the DSM-3, you had a separate category that said childhood schizophrenia. So schizophrenia that could be diagnosed for children. And then I think they took it out in, I know for sure it wasn't in the 94 DSM. I'm thinking it was even out of the DSM-3
Okay.
So it could have been even earlier than 94, but it was removed. It could have been 90. I think it was removed 90. I'm not sure because I've gone through so many DSM diagnostic manuals. So it was removed, which basically said you can't really diagnose kids with schizophrenia. But then, after the 94 change, it essentially said, okay, it's a possibility that there are children who have this. It's a very, very minimal number, because schizophrenia usually will develop 18 and up.
Okay.
So that's sort of the kind of the mixture. But if you're looking at schizophrenia, once you get a diagnosis of schizophrenia, you would most likely be an adolescent or later. And the behavior, the things that go into having hallucinations and delusions are so profound and so they take over your life so significantly that medication is an absolute need.
Okay.
You cannot avoid medication when you're hallucinating, period. So, it becomes like a whole different issue. It's kind of like you now need to deal with keeping hallucinations and delusions under control. There is no mental retardation association with schizophrenia.
Okay.
There is a delay. See, mental retardation is just a mental delay, right? And delays are more associated with autism.
Okay.
Aberrant behaviors are more associated with schizophrenia. I hope that answers the question.
No, that absolutely does. Thank you for clarifying that. I've always wondered that. And then, do we have time, Emily, for one more? Okay, one more that came in on Facebook. Is there anything besides melatonin that will help a child sleep? My son keeps waking up at 11:30 p.m. and staying up all night and day until 5, and the cycle starts again. And I know you've talked about this a little bit before, but this is a new question.
So the problem with melatonin on its own is that it often does this. It like messes up the child's cycle. First of all, if your child's not sleeping, I would really keep them up when they're not supposed to be asleep. Like if they're asleep, don't let them sleep during the day. Like very important. But I found that melatonin works better when it's combined with tryptophan.
Okay.
And that's why I love this.
You got me some of that.
Did you ever try it?
Yes, it's great stuff.
Doesn't it work? It's amazing,
fabulous.
right?
Yes.
You just can't do it more than 3 nights. If you do it more than 3 nights in a row, you need a night off.
Yeah.
So that stuff is called Tranquil Sleep.
Yes.
And it's you get it from Amazon. You can order it anywhere. And it's really good. It's a chewable tablet, 3 milligrams. So it's easy. You can break it for 1.5. You can take 2, whatever. And it's a combination of theanine with 5-HTP, which is tryptophan, and melatonin. And it makes it so much more effective. It may still wake you. You might still wake up 6 hours later or so, but you'll have more energy. It will make you sleepy. Now, having said that, melatonin or any of these types of things, kind of natural things, you really do need to calm the environment as well. You can force yourself to stay awake even if you've taken melatonin, but so it's important for the family to make everything dark, quiet, etc. And of course there's a billion sleeping pills that are out there. I don't really recommend them, but sometimes another thing that Benadryl will tend to help our kids sleep. I know some of my kids take Benadryl, and that's pretty effective for them and pretty harmless too.
Okay. And Emily, I have to squeeze one more in because I promised. How can I get through my 16-year-old with Asperger's that finishing high school is the right thing to do? He's adamant about not going back. He thinks it's a waste of time, and he's not going to apply himself. I offered him the choice to homeschool. He still refuses to do that. All he wants to do is draw and write and to hopefully get published. Please advise. Thank you.
That's a tough one. You essentially, I guess what you have to do is you have to connect what's meaningful to him, for him, to what you want him to do. So you want him to go to high school, he wants to write. I think what you need to do is make him realize that the likelihood of getting published is much less if he doesn't have a high school degree. And perhaps you want to take his favorite authors and show him that they all have college degrees. Or perhaps another more rudimentary way to handle this is just make a deal with him. In other words, do 1 year of high school and I'll give you money. And with that money, you can go and take a writing course.
Or self-publish or something.
Or something like that, exactly. So it's really just establishing his main reinforcer is writing, I suppose, and your main wish is for him to go to college. So the 2 things I would do is make sure that he realizes all of his models are or educated. Is it college or high school?
High school.
High school educated at least. And the second thing is to just increase the reward level. And having said that, it's not a reward is no longer a reward if it's free all the time. So it's hard to take away writing because that's an ability he has. But perhaps I'm not even sure how good his writing is. If his writing is not all that good, perhaps you try to find a coach, a writing coach, who tells him go back to school because your grammar is off or your writing's not good or whatever it is.
How about this? We'll add to the pile here at Autism Live. If he gets his diploma, we'll do an interview with him talking about his book that he's writing here.
There you go.
So we'll throw that into the mix.
That would be awesome. Yeah. That's exactly the type of thing you need, something that's meaningful to him.
Yeah. And I don't know that would be, but let's float that out.
Or take him on a trip if he graduates, or find the reinforcer that's powerful enough that you're willing to give him if he graduates.
There we go. Love it. Thank you so much.
It's
always such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much.
We're going to take a break and look at the A Word now. This is the ongoing documentary being done here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, following Jack Riley, a little boy who was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. At this point, he's been having therapeutic intervention, intensive intervention in his home for 2 years now. He's making great progress. He started preschool, but they're still working on some things. So we're going to take a look at that. When we come back, Nancy Jackson will be joining us. We're going to have a dentist on the show today talking about how we can get our kids to brush and reduce cavities. And then we've got a really exciting guest talking about transitioning kids, those between kids when they're doing really well but just need that last little push in the teen years. I think you're really going to love it. So stick with us. This is the A Word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast.
Oh, she has that picture from Halloween. I want to see it. He looks so cute as Angry Bird. Oh, gonna see?
Yeah.
We've added statement. Have you seen that one?
No,
oh,
no.
Okay. So I say a statement, and he has to say a similar statement to what I said. So what we're targeting right now is I have a dicey. So I would say, I have a pen, and he would say, I have an iPod. And then we would just go back and forth. And with this one, we're targeting him while we're playing with something, just to make it more natural. So when they're doing play or anything like that, then his peer would say something, and he can say the same thing. So let me set that up for you.
I'm laying on the floor.
I'm playing.
I see a girl.
Going down the steps.
She's going downstairs.
And there's Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, he's dragging behind.
I see Tigger.
Good job, Jack Riley.
Besides working on statement, Jack Riley is also learning sequencing. What he has to do is take images and put them in order. A few weeks ago, he started with 2 steps, and today he's working with 3 steps. What he has to do besides putting the images in order is he has to describe what's happening using words like first, then, and finally.
First, then, finally.
Yep, by yourself.
We're going to use 3 boxes.
First, he
builds.
builds.
We're going to use 3 steps. First, he makes a big, smaller tower. Then he makes a big tower. Then he makes a... No, let's try again. Finally, the pieces fall off from the table.
You go. Okay, very good. Say, don't do that, Lainey. Say, let go. There you go. Good using your words.
He's standing.
Today has partnered with Cox Communications to bring Inclusion Films to San Diego. Led by Joey Travolta, Inclusion Films teaches filmmaking to developmentally disabled children.
It's a practical film camp where we take them through the process of making a film. And each group, we split them into 3 groups, and they're each responsible for making a short film together as a group.
How many people like animation in this group?
This is a wonderful opportunity for children to build their self-confidence, to develop new friendships, and it's also an opportunity for their siblings to come and to enjoy the company of other peers in this really wonderful, fun setting.
Okay, so you know what time it is?
Cox Communications has years of supporting the community. We believe in giving back to the communities we serve, And military, youth, and education are our 3 pillars. And so this really matched up with everything that we're about and what we're trying to do to give back to the San Diego community. And so we were thrilled to meet up with ACT Today and Inclusion Films and to have this wonderful synergy. 3 organizations really trying to move towards a common cause.
All right, we ready?
There you go, got it.
Okay, you'll be talking to me, okay? So tell me your name, say my name is. In the past, we've done the Junior Apprentice, which was a takeoff on The Apprentice, the Really, Really, Really Late Show, which is a takeoff on The Tonight Show. And this year, we're doing a combination of 60 Minutes and Entertainment Tonight called 30 Minutes Tonight.
Okay, good. So now you understand what an improv is. You guys get the idea what an improv is? To go with the flow of something, especially in the action.
My son Elijah, he's into movies and he's into music, and so this program might bring out his particular skills.
Amazing. You're like a professional actor.
Every single person here we've met has been so kind, loving, and caring. They've given Nicholas the opportunity to be himself and be around people who have the same passion and interest as he does.
What is it you learned this program? What did you learn?
That filming is kind of tricky.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get 2 kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate. And when they collaborate, they come up with a product that everybody can see they're a part of something. They become a community, they become a family. When you make a film, you really become a family.
Are we having fun at film camp? Yeah! You know, we are close to Hollywood. Yep. And Hollywood is always looking for young talent like you.
Autism is an epidemic and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. Families are struggling to pay the bills, to put food on their table, let alone provide services for their children. And ACT Today is a vehicle of support for these families by helping them get access to life supports that they couldn't otherwise have.
My experience in film camp has been great, and I just really love how all you guys decided to bring us together.
What I learned here, I learned to animate, how to operate the plot board.
I learned about the animation and filming and
making friends.
Making new friends and acting.
Meeting new friends. You can be anything you want to be.
What this meant for your family.
It's hard to put into words, to be honest with you. It's just been godsend. I don't even know how to describe it. It's been amazing.
Attending the camp was something that my children never ever would have been able to do previously. It brought a level of confidence I've seen in their schoolwork, but I've seen in them socially, but I'd never seen before.
This premiere ties 3 things that are near and dear to me in my life. 1, autism, because it touches directly into my family. 2, most of my friends here are military. 3, film. I love film. I love performing.
Well, first of all, it's a great cause that you've created here for all these kids. Every time you come out, you feel like you're giving back, and you want to be able to support these kids.
Everything that goes into everyday life goes into filmmaking. So all the things that go into them are all life skills. So I just think any program like this, any arts program, anything that can let these kids communicate, it's just important. And I'm going to keep doing it as long as I can.
The children in the military have special challenges. Every couple of years, their parents have to start over getting their programs back. And that is something that is daunting. Luckily, you have wonderful advocates working all the time in ACT today, and I'm seeing differences, like more military members being really cognizant of the needs of special needs families.
And I just want to thank you for your service.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you for being such an amazing mom and all the work you do. And I want you to have a wonderful time tonight. Tonight's for you. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Allspot Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod. Welcome to the show. We're so glad to have you back. You look lovely today.
I know. You know why you think I look so dressed up? I put on dark lipstick.
I think you got a little bit of hair thing going on.
I don't know. The hair was dirty, so I just like squirted it with spray and whoop.
Well, it looks great. Right. You look like you're off to a presidential inauguration.
Well, no. And as I said to you, you said I should be a first lady. If they looked into my background, they'd nix me right away.
President. That'd be good.
They'd nix me for that, too.
I would vote for you for president.
All right.
But there's a lot of stuff that happened in the news.
A lot in the news, and we're going to quickly go over a few things to get to one story, because you've already covered the Kaiser settlement.
Yes.
Which is very exciting, actually, for our families.
It's very exciting. $9 million settlement for families that paid for out-of-pocket insurance for coverage for ABA before the state mandated them to do it. So that's why this is kind of really landmark legislation.
Okay.
They're going to pay $9 million. So if you were in Kaiser and before 2010, if you paid out of pocket for some services, you need to make sure that you should get something in the mail, send it back in. You will get some of that money.
Get reimbursed.
And it's a great thing, because it's going to send a message to a lot of insurance providers that even if the state hasn't mandated it, you better look at paying for it, or you might be on the hook for it later on.
Right. And if there's leftover money, it goes to autism research.
Well, they're saying a portion of it will.
Okay.
So we'll see how much of it will go to that. And then there was another story very big in the news this week about inducing and augmenting labor may correlate to your incidence of autism rate. And I know you saw that.
Well, I had heard that, and in looking back with Wyatt, several things that I think are these environmental triggers. His birth mother worked in a commercial housekeeping firm, I believe, and during her pregnancy, was around a lot of chemicals. She did not take prenatal vitamins because she didn't admit she was pregnant until she was about 7 months. And then the other thing was that her labor was induced with Pitocin. And I had heard in various articles Pitocin might be involved.
Might be.
So, once again, it could be a combination of these things. We're not saying this isn't necessarily an isolated thing, but I subscribe to the more toxins into that baby or that, developing embryo, then we're talking the opportunity for autism.
Absolutely.
So, okay.
And then there was a story that we wanted to make sure that we covered this week that we haven't covered before about anorexic girls.
Yeah, I found this one fascinating, and that is that anorexic girls show autistic traits. Scientists studying girls with eating disorder anorexia have found they show a mild echo of the characteristics of autism. And they're saying that could help point to new ways of helping anorexics overcome their illness, because I guess they could use some probably behavioral therapies for them. So this was done at Cambridge University, and they said that a lot of the behaviors, like the strong interest in systems and, repetitive and compulsions, weighing themselves, arranging their food intake, all of this. So it might be something that has to do with that region of the brain involved in social perception.
There we go.
So I think that's a very fascinating study. And, I, for one, had some issues with food as a teenager. I did, I had binge eating. And
I still have issues with food, but it doesn't involve the bulimic end of things.
Good.
But, I still have issues with food. And I think it's very common for especially girls and women.
Very common.
Not to let out the fact, though, that, not to leave out the fact that some some men have issues too.
Oh, which is why I love the fact that like Melissa McCarthy is the biggest box office draw for women in the country. I just love that woman. Go, Melissa.
Yes,
you're
Melissa.
Yeah. So,
now we've got some really important guests that we're going to be having. We've got 2 guests, so we're kind of running to catch up because I went along with Ask Dr. Doreen.
Okay.
But our first interview that we're going to do is with Marianne Bernaldo
of Xcite Steps.
Yes, and I'm very excited that she's going to be joining us via Skype. We're going to talk about making transitions, teenagers. We've talked about this before. Those kids that we sort of started calling them the tweens. They're somewhere in between being on the spectrum, but they're not 100% fitting in.
Right.
And how can we bridge that gap for those younger kids and the teenagers and the young adults?
That can be even harder for people than having a child fully on the spectrum that, has full autism diagnosis. Because with the full autism diagnosis, you can be kind of open about that. Children can know, well, we're helping our classmate because they're not neurotypical. But if that child is one of those tweens, which my son has a very close friend that's like that, a lot of the kids don't think. They're just why does he act weird sometimes, and why does he do this? So I think that's a really important topic. I'm excited to talk to her. And then we have Dr. Humara Shah. I hope I pronounced her first name right. Just lovely. I met her out front, and she is the author of a book, Sam and the Sugar Bug. She's a children's dentist, and she has made this book to help our children get rid of the fear of going to the dentist. And she's brought tons of copies for our families, so they can write us if they'd like it. It's a really cute book.
Very exciting. So we're going to take a break and come back with Marianne Bernaldo. Stick with us. Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism. My beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
We are extremely grateful for the amazing job CARD has done in helping our daughter. Our daughter today, just in 4 months, I think is a totally different child than when she started with CARD. I kind of see it as, it seems like her brain in a way was asleep, and now that we've gotten so many services, we've seen her wake up.
Did you have some guesses?
Recovery is possible if you take the right steps, if you're willing to put in all the hard work. And 7.5 years, yeah, it's a lot of work. It's worth every little bit, and CARD's been there with us every step of the way.
I have 2 children with autism. I can't imagine a day without CARD or the therapists. They've been so instrumental in helping us with our kids and shaping their lives and helping us help them.
Thank you, Christina Big Alex.
Thank you, Jackie and Marianne.
We've tried other things before ABA, but the most beneficial thing has been ABA services, and I'd be the first person to tell any newly diagnosed family that you have to contact an ABA provider, and if you're lucky enough to have CARD, you're very blessed.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible.
We are back with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy, and we have with us she's on audio Skype because we couldn't get her picture up, so you'll look at us while we do this interview. It is Marianne Bernaldo, and she is an MS BCBA Director of ABA Programs at Xcite Steps. Welcome, Marianne.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. And Marianne, you've worked with us on our Inclusion Films program down in San Diego.
Yes, I did. Myself and a couple of members of my team did. It was very, very fun and exciting.
Yeah, it was so crucial to have you and your ABA therapist there to help us with the children. So we want to thank you for that. Today we're focusing about helping kids caught between the tweens, the two worlds. But first, tell us about the mission of Xcite Steps.
Yes, Xcite Steps really believes in providing quality ABA services to children of all ages on a spectrum. We actually deal with, probably as young as 2 up to adult. So we believe in servicing children up to adult years, kind of the full lifespan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that we're looking at a shot of some of your, I guess, your therapists. You have quite a group there.
Yes.
Of wonderful young therapists. And go ahead.
Do you mind? You specialize a little bit, though, in an area that we don't think that there's enough people talking about. That area when kids are doing really well, they're teenagers, maybe young adults, and they aren't fitting in a world that's just special education anymore, but they're still struggling a little bit to get into that neurotypical world. That you described it on your site as having one foot in each world, and that you're really good at helping kids to move through that period of time. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I would love to tell you about it. As Director of ABA Programs, I oversee a bunch of the social skills groups that run on Saturdays, especially like what you were saying with the teen population. We're really providing, I guess, a really nice safe haven for a lot of these individuals to socialize with their peers so that they can learn a lot of those social skills that they can bring with them out into, I guess, the real world.
Fabulous. And how can people find you if they want to find out more information about Xcite Steps?
Just real easy on our webpage, which is www.xcite, and it's with an X, xcitesteps.com.
Okay. We're going to take a little bit of a break.
Come back with you.
But when we come back, we're going to ask you some more questions about some of the other programs that you guys have at Xcite Steps.
Oh, wonderful.
All right. So
we'll be back with more.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity.
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instruction. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with it.
IBT continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. On the phone right now, we have Marianne Bernaldo. She is an MS BCBA and the director of ABA programs at Xcite Steps. And Marianne, you're primarily located in San Diego, California. Is that correct?
Yes.
And I'm wondering, we were talking a little bit before about some of the programs that you were offering for teens. What's the whole scope? What kinds of programs are you guys offering there?
Right now we're offering 4 basic social skills programs. One ages for 3 to 6. It's called the Littles group, and then we have a 7 to 9 called Kids group, Kids Adventures. A 10 to 12 called Youth Social, and then from 13 to 17 we have a teen group being offered.
This is great. I would love. I'm looking for something like this for Wyatt at some point. My son, who is going to be 12, and Shannon, of course, has a young son. Jim is 10.
Yeah.
And these social skills are so important.
Absolutely.
Tell us about. Shannon wanted to know about a model.
I just think this is so exciting, and I think that people are going to be writing into us and saying, "How can I get hooked up with this kind of thing?" And you're focusing with an ABA model. You're focusing on social skills, correct? Am I getting it right?
Yes.
Okay, and so it occurred to me that this could be everywhere. Are you guys looking at franchising or setting it up so that other people can follow the model of what you're doing?
We've talked about some other locations. It might be kind of our 5-year plan.
Okay,
good, because we think it's a great need. Can you share with us some of the stories that maybe you've encountered along the way with these groups, of some of the improvements and some of the, these miracles happen every day in these kind of situations. Can you tell us some stories, of course, without naming the children, of some of the changes that have occurred?
Yeah, I can think of just in general the kids in a teen group. So when you get a group of teens together, it's always difficult to kind of gauge if they're going to pretty much like one another, And I remember seeing we have a lot of returning teen members. At first, it was really, you could tell it was really awkward. It was silent for the first couple weeks. I mean, honestly, because we run it in 6-week increments, to see the kids at the very end, like high-five each other when they're playing basketball, or they'll ask for, oh, hey, where's, so-and-so at? And it is amazing. It brings when you hear them make comments and to one another, good sportsmanship comments, that wasn't there in the beginning. I mean, it really warms my heart, because you can tell they really enjoy each other's company.
Do you find that these kids are then more often able to make friendships with neurotypical children? It is much easier for them after this kind of experience?
Yeah, some of the parents have reported to me that their child has opened up a little bit more to other neurotypical peers.
Good.
They're more comfortable.
Right. But do you also find that our children with very high-functioning autism tend to make friends with other children with high-functioning autism?
Yes, that happens quite frequently, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, we've heard a lot about that at school, about kids being able to find their group in which they feel comfortable. We all do that.
Which is great. And with the increase, obviously, with the fact that this is an epidemic, there are going to be more and more children that they're going to feel comfortable with.
Absolutely.
What advice do you have for parents who are looking for something like this?
I would first say to parents, check what kind of insurance you have. Because that's, with the insurance law passing last year, a lot of these groups can be funded through insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, we do have some private pay families who, maybe their insurance hasn't worked out, but we are accepting several other new providers. So I would say check to see what kind of insurance you have, and, give us a call, and we'll definitely help a lot of parents walk through the process.
Okay,
Fabulous.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for being with us, Marianne. We really appreciate you.
Sorry we couldn't see your beautiful face, but we appreciate having you on the phone, and good luck with this. It's a great program.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
And we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we have this fabulous pediatric dentist,
Dr. Shah.
She's going to be helping us to understand what we can do to help set our kids with special needs up for success.
Right.
And she's going to share her fabulous new book with us, too.
Right. Okay, good.
All right, stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle. Without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready?
There you go, got it.
Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
We are back, and we have a very special guest with us here in the studio. I'm so excited to have her here.
Thank you for having me.
We are here with Dr. Humera. See, I knew I was going to say it wrong. I got it right 3 times out of 4.
Right.
Shah, but Dr. Shah. And you are a dentist, and you were a general dentist, but now you specialize in working with children?
I'm a general dentist.
Okay.
But ever since I graduated, I've been very lucky to work only with kids.
Okay.
I haven't looked in an adult mouth for like last 10 or 11
Lucky
years.
you.
Yes, to do that.
I consider myself very, very lucky for that.
And we've got a lot of different things that we're going to talk about with you, not the least of which is the fact that you are the author of this new book, Sam and the Sugar Bug, and we're going to be talking about that. But we want to start by asking you, what are some quick tips that parents can really get their arms around that will help to make a trip to the dentist be a little bit less frightening for a child who has special needs?
That is a very good question.
Good, I'm glad.
Yes. The most important thing is to get an early start. The first checkup of your child should be at his first or her first birthday, right after that. And after that, you're going to do it every 6 months.
Okay.
What that really does is, first of all, it familiarizes the child with the office and the dentist. He's going to, when he goes there over and over again, he's going to be more comfortable there.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a happy place for them, a fun place to visit. I know for my son it is.
Yes. Also, when you're taking them every 6 months, it becomes a routine. Routine is very important for a special need kid.
Of course.
And also, another thing that comes out of this is, let's say you went to a dentist at the age of 1, you didn't like the dentist, right? You have a lot of time to, every time go and see which is the right one. That'll give you more time.
Okay.
Also, if you're just taking a child to a dentist when he or she is in pain, think about it. Like you have a 5-year-old child or 6-year-old child, never taken him to dentist, right? Suddenly he's in pain and goes, Mom, my tooth hurts, let's go. So you're taking him. That is inevitably going to follow with treatment.
Right.
Obviously, he's not hurting for nothing.
No,
right?
he'll associate it with a very negative experience as opposed to a positive experience.
If he's in pain, the least he's going to need a filling or an extraction or a crown or, one of the treatments. It's not a very exciting thing for a first visit. Right? So that is going to leave a sour taste in his mouth. And he may not get over the fear ever. So you never want to do that. First birthday, early start, and often every 6 months.
Okay.
It might surprise you that patients that I've had from their early childhood, some of the parents bring them to me every 3 months, just so they don't forget.
Right.
And, obviously special needs, like I said, it is not easy for any child, leave apart special needs. Dentistry is not circus. How much ever we sugarcoat is going to dentist, even I'm scared when I go. Obviously, you're having a person sitting around on your head. You have them, obviously giving anesthesia. So it's really not fun. We can make it better for them, obviously. So the thing to remember, early start and often, as often as 6 months.
Well, let's take a break and we'll come back and find out about.
I want to hear more about this wonderful book, Sam and the Sugar Bug, but I want to make sure that everybody knows how they can get it, because we have some copies of this book to give away, but you have free copies of it that they can get on the iPads,
yes. Correct? Sam and the Sugar Bug was a print, but then I made it available on iBooks just because I realized how much kids nowadays are relying on technology. iPad has become a leading tool for kids, especially with special needs.
There we go.
So, especially those with autism.
Yes.
And it's free. We love free.
Yes, I have made it free from last 6 months, and I will continue to keep it free for a couple of months more.
Okay.
So I want you guys to download it. Very easy to download on your App Store. App Store is always on the screen. Search for iBooks. iBooks is a free app. Okay. It's Apple's library.
Right.
It's where you can download a ton of books. Okay. Some paid, some free.
Yes.
So once you download iBooks, go to the store and search for Sam and the Sugar Bug. It will open up the page. It will say free. Click on it, put in the password, you'll have the book free for life.
And we did that this morning, and so that's actually what you saw is our copy up here on our iPad, so easy enough to do. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk more about Sam and the Sugar Bug and some other things that parents need to know, like how do you choose whether to do have the child put completely to sleep or give them just mild sedation. So all of that and more, stick with us.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, you know, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. With us in the studio right now, we're having a really good time talking with Dr. Shah. She is a dentist, and we've been getting some advice from her about how to get our kids who have special needs to the dentist and have them not be frightened. And we've been looking through her book, Sam and the Sugar Bug, and we're loving it.
Yeah, we've got Evil Randy is a great character in here. That, you know, he has to get kicked out of Sam's mouth, and all his friends have been invited into Sam's mouth, and I know my son loves hard copy books. So Dr. Shah has been kind enough to bring us about 20 copies of these. So if you would like, write us here at Autism Live, and we can send these out to you. First come, first serve, right?
Absolutely.
But
and
you can get it free.
Prefer to, like, I love it that your child prefers the hard book. Yeah. My son prefers to use his iPad.
Right.
And if your child is like that, you can get it for free. You can download it. And the doctor was just telling us, go to iBooks and then look for Sam and the Sugar Bug. So, and it's free right now. So tell us, so you're a dentist and you're working with kids. How did this book come about?
Well, like I said, I've been very, very lucky and fortunate to work with kids ever since I graduated. So it's not very easy to get a child to walk into the dentist's office, have him sit on the chair and navigate his mouth. You know, it's pretty challenging for every child.
Right.
So I over the years, I realized that when I was looking in their mouth, I would tell them, oh, I'm looking at the bugs. Look, I see one bug, and they would let me do it.
Yeah.
And when I was like, oh, how many do you see? How many? And and then I realized, oh my God, the more you have to come down to their level.
Yeah, you made it visual. You made it a conceptual thing they could understand.
You know, with kids, you have to come down to their level.
Of course.
Otherwise, you will not get to them. And then the most common question that I always had with the parents was, how can I get him to brush?
Yes.
Or her to brush?
Yeah.
That is like the question I hear every day.
And then the one after that is, how do I get them to floss?
Yes, exactly. So these were my two inspirations. So once, I realized that, and then I was like, okay, I can put it together. Not only will it help me, because as you go through Sam and the Sugar Bug, it also explains the treatment, right? And it has the sound of the drill, which familiarizes in the end when it says, I'm going to clean out the sugar bugs.
Right.
Kelly added the sound of Kelly Flitzer is the narrator and the sound effects, who did an amazing job, and of course the illustrator who made it come to life, Javier Gonzalez. The sound of the drill, when they hear it and they go to office, and when you're fixing their teeth, they already are kind of familiar to it.
So clever. And we actually have a video from your website of the book. Emily, can we show that right now? This is Sam and the Sugar Bug.
Sam and the Sugar Bug by Dr. Shah. Layla had been taking good care of her teeth. She would always brush her teeth in the morning and at night before going to bed. Layla's brother Sam would sometimes get lazy and would forget to brush his teeth, especially at night. One night, Sam had dinner and went to sleep without brushing his teeth. Randy, the evil sugar bug, was looking for food and was very hungry. Randy snuck into Layla's room and found nothing. Randy went from room to room looking for food until at last he entered Sam's room.
I smell food,
said Randy with an evil grin. Evil Randy followed the scent and it led him to Sam's mouth. Randy jumped into Sam's mouth and said,
Really fun.
We were just talking with Dr. Shah about this passion of yours to, I mean, the fact that you actually wrote this book, had it designed and, the illustrations, then put it into an ebook, had the narration done, you've offered this for free. This is really a passion of yours.
Yes. Working with kids and making things easy for them is my passion.
And when I asked
get excited about it.
When I asked you if you had anybody with special needs in your family, you said my patients are my family.
Yes, the fact is I don't have any special need child in my family, but every day I see a ton of them. So they become a part of my life.
It's really remarkable.
So sweet.
I see all the kids, but because whenever you have a children's office, most of the adults won't see them, which I would never recommend any child to go to an adult setup. So most of the special need come to be a children's office.
Right.
Really remarkable. And you had mentioned before that that there are ways that the book can help a child to be able to brush. And I know I'm always concerned about, I can get my child to brush, but I'm concerned about, is he brushing effectively? So what advice, I know you've got a visual aid over there, help us.
Yes, it looks kind of ugly because of my work when I was back in the days when I was a student and I had to practice, so kind of found this and it looks like funny, but I think we can have
It's okay.
We can go ahead. The most important things with the kid to brush is I really want the parents to do it when they're young. Well, first of all, age 1 to 3, you have no choice to brush yourself.
Of course they don't really.
When you go on from 3, let them do it, but you got to tell them, look, there's Randy in there, there are bugs in there, I think they're hiding somewhere. Oh, I see there one, I got to clean it.
So make it fun.
Yeah, make it fun. So important thing to remember is you need not only to brush the teeth, but the gums too.
Yeah.
Okay? So make circular motions. See how I'm getting the gums too? Because if you're just brushing teeth and skipping the gums, the bacteria collect along the gums. They will cause the infection of the gums, which is, of course, called gingivitis.
Yes.
The plaque will accumulate, and which eventually will lead to cavities, too, apart from the gum disease.
Okay.
So every time you brush, make circular motions, go around on the gums, in the back, and very important, inside, towards the tongue in the back is pretty challenging.
Okay.
So make sure you're doing that. Important thing is not only just to brush, how do you get a good access to the patient?
Yeah.
I did get a picture of knee to knee. That's how I do my exams with patients less than age of 3. That's my husband right there.
Okay.
We took this picture early in the morning. So you hold one of you, if you have help, that's really good. If you can do it every day, at least 3 times a week, you put the child's legs around your waist.
Okay.
The person who has it around the waist holds the arms, and then the other person, brushes the teeth. You will get a better access and better look at what you're doing.
Wow.
And also, if your child always fights you, which my son did till he was 2.5, irrespective, like I said, every child fights.
Right.
So don't be put off by that. It's common.
Believe me, I fought my child. I sat on him a couple of times when I didn't have help because I'd rather brush his teeth than have him go through the dental treatment. So you're not the only ones out there who's having tough time. Every mom is having a tough time, and this is a very, very effective way to get it done.
Okay. Now, what about flossing? Because we've talked about brushing. My son loves to brush, and I think half of it is eating half the toothpaste, but which is kind of a problem. We have to make sure he only uses the proper amount of the toothpaste.
Yes, I was going to go there. I'm going to tell you the tips for that.
All right.
About flossing, stick flossers. I have with my son and my patients. The little stick ones. I have seen they work better because the strings are long. Just to get, especially with a special need, they have sensory issues. So if you get your hands in there, they are not going to like it. So stick flossers, use them, and like I said, tell them in between there. I see Randy. I'm going to take it out. Very important.
So should the parent do the flossing in the beginning to get the child used to it if they're having a hard time?
Like I said, till 3, you do all this stuff.
Okay, but what about even with a 10-year-old? If the 10-year-old's not really getting those areas? Okay.
Okay, they do it and then we go after.
Okay. Now this is a very important question that I want to bring up is which toothpaste to use?
Yes.
Okay. Because a lot of kids with special needs do not like the taste and they swallow the toothpaste, okay? Remember, the mechanical action of brushing teeth is great, so don't make toothbrush an issue. Of course, the fluoride in it helps, but mechanical action is more important than anything else other than for brushing and flossing. So I get a lot of parents, oh, he doesn't like the toothpaste. Don't worry about it. Toothpaste is not so important. Safe to swallow till they are 3, okay? Till they are 3, use safe to swallow, because they're going to eat it.
Right.
There are a lot of toothpaste out there that you can use, and try different ones till you find the right.
And fluoride is important.
I do fluoride every 6 months at my office.
Okay.
But when they're less than 3, personally, I choose not them
to put
swallow
the fluoride because they swallow it.
They swallow it, less than 3.
Okay.
And then choose the right taste for your patient. Get different ones, different brands, till you have the right one.
We're pretty much out of time, unfortunately, and I know we wanted to briefly mention, because I want people to be able to hear from you, that the idea of having a bottle when children... I know
and we've got a couple of pictures that I think we should show.
So I've been working with kids, and every day I see kids that have extensive treatment around from age of 2 to 5. It's called nursing bottle syndrome.
Okay.
Nursing bottle syndrome, what happens is if your child after once, you're supposed to be brushing teeth and not wake up in the middle of the night to feed them.
Yes.
However, if you continue to feed them, they'll fall asleep, they'll keep that last amount of milk in their mouth.
Yes.
And that rots their teeth.
Okay, and we have, look at this.
Yes,
look at this. That child was how old?
5 years.
So that's not even putting them to bed with a bottle. That's not brushing that's giving them something to drink and sending them to bed without brushing teeth.
No. One is with sending them
There's
to bed.
another one.
Yeah, that's a 17-month or less than 2. No, one thing is sending them to bed without brushing their teeth and falling. The most important thing is all through the night. Sometimes kids wake up, breastfeed, sleep, wake up, breastfeed, sleep. So if they are, or a bottle, I'm not against breastfeeding.
Right.
I love breastfeeding.
Breastfeeding or a bottle, but they're keeping the milk in the mouth all
night. That is the point I want to make here.
Okay, great.
Very important that after first birthday, you start teaching them to drink with a straw. And if you get them to brush their teeth and sleep, wake up in the morning. Very hard to do that. If you're not able to do that, you're still breastfeeding or giving the bottle. Keep a bottle filled with water by your side. When you're done breastfeeding or with the bottle, stick the bottle in their mouth with water.
They rinse it.
So it washes. They'll suck on it. The last part in their mouth will be water. Save your child.
All right.
Nobody wants to go through such an extensive treatment.
No. Really? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shah.
Thank you so much.
And juice. Can I say one more?
Yeah, juice.
Please do not give them a lot of juice. 4 ounces of juice a day, one time with a meal. Rest of the day, water and milk with the meals. Juice, if you go to park, fill or outside or have a sippy cup filled with juice or bottle filled with juice all day long, they're sucking. It will give them nursing bottle syndrome.
Very important to know. We thank you so much.
I learned a lot. And remember, we have a lot of copies here of Sam and the Sugar Bug. So if you'd like to have a copy for your child, a hard copy, autographed by Dr. Shah, we'll be happy to send it to you.
Otherwise, you can download the free copy.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. In just a second.
Thank you for having me.
Just go like this. Can you see me? Puedes mirarme aquí? Okay. Hi, I'm Rebecca Ishida. Say hi, Ethan. Hi. My son was diagnosed with autism in November 2004. With Ethan, almost immediately, we noticed things that were troublesome, that he just didn't sleep. He would vomit in the crib. There were a lot of sensory issues.
Then he'd have like 20 of the trains lined up, and if you came in and took one train out, just meltdown completely.
Guttural instinct is to think that there's nothing wrong. Who wants to look at their child and go, there's something wrong with that child?
You don't. You always want to see the best in your child.
Will my kid be able to go to school? Will he interact with his peers? Will he be able to have a healthy relationship? Will he get married? I really thought that autism was like a death sentence. A lot of hope was given to me through CARD. This was my third agency and the best agency we had. And there was no way in the world I was going to give up CARD because of the gains I saw Ethan was having.
You did it!
And I remember when Doreen saw us for the evaluation, she says, but by the time he's 6, he will be recovered. And that's exactly what happened.
I'll fix that.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I wanted to get a little update because I know yesterday as we closed the show, I said to everybody that, you know, sometimes as an autism parent, you have more than meets the eye going on. I mentioned that you have been going through a lot this summer, that your wonderful husband, Reed, has had some health issues.
Yes, quite a few.
And has been in the hospital quite a lot this summer.
Yeah, he spent half the summer in the hospital, so it's been a very difficult summer for us.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of that affects Wyatt, obviously.
Sure, of course.
You know, so he's been going through some bedwetting. Yes. But for me, you know, plugging ahead with work sometimes helps more than hinders. So, but yeah, my husband's battled cancer for 20 years and prostate cancer, which has reoccurred. And anyway, a lot of the treatments, the chemo and radiation killed the good stuff too. So he's had a kidney destroyed and some other things. So he's been in the hospital a lot. But he got home last night. So thank everybody. I know you asked people to pray, and I want to thank you for that. He's home.
And we can keep those prayers coming because he still has a recovery to
make.
Yeah,
he does.
But I'm thrilled that he's home now.
Thank you, Shannon.
And I'm thrilled that we have you. I said Nancy will probably be here tomorrow because that's who Nancy is. But I think it's important that people know that you're plugging ahead with all that going on.
Well,
so
this, you know, helping other families and the families that we educate and help, and especially at Act Today, is what keeps me going.
Well, you're a remarkable person. I long to be more like you. Any case, we're out of time. But tomorrow we have Dr. Amy Adams with us, and Travis Breeding is going to be with us, and Ashley Colas is going to go through those pencil grips. So it's a big day here. So you won't want to miss it. That's tomorrow.
And we'll be back next week with more Let's Talk Autism and some more great guests.
And until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And give yourselves a hug from me.
Bye-bye for now.
Bye.